Try to imagine this. One very ordinary morning. You eat like usual, talk like usual, then suddenly a tiny spot appears inside your mouth. Just a dot. But a few hours later, it turns into a dull ache strong enough to ruin your focus for the entire day. Spicy food burns. Salty food stings. Even talking feels uncomfortable. And you start wondering, why do I get mouth ulcers? The truth is, mouth ulcers are not a disease, and they are not caused by internal heat, the way people often think. They are a reaction of the soft tissue in your mouth when it gets damaged or overstimulated. One accidental bite while eating, a very small scratch, or a day of more sour, spicy, or salty food than usual, and the thin oral lining is already enough to trigger an alarm. But the more interesting part is this. Not everyone gets mouth ulcers in the same way. Some people go an entire year without a single one. Some get them whenever they are stressed. Some only need a few nights of poor sleep before their mouth starts to sting. Why? Because mouth ulcers are closely linked to your immune system and your nervous system state. When stress drags on, the body shifts into survival mode rather than repair mode. The immune system overreacts slightly, attacking even healthy tissue around a tiny injury, causing the ulcer to spread and hurt more than it should. There's more. Micronutrient deficiencies are a very quiet culprit. Lacking vitamin B, iron, or zinc won't knock you down immediately, but it makes the oral lining thinner, more fragile, and slower to heal. That's why people with irregular eating habits, long-term dieting, or chronic work stress often get recurring mouth ulcers. One important thing needs to be said clearly. Mouth ulcers are not contagious. They are not the same as cold sores caused by viruses. You don't catch them from someone else. Your own body creates this reaction from within. The good news is that most mouth ulcers heal on their own within 1 to 2 weeks, even if you do nothing at all. The bad news is that if you stay stressed, keep eating irritating foods, sleep poorly, or remain deficient in key nutrients, as soon as one ulcer heals, another may appear. So instead of only looking for something to apply to reduce the pain, zoom out a little. Mouth ulcers are often a small signal that your body is overloaded somewhere, maybe mentally, maybe in your daily rhythm, maybe nutritionally. If you've noticed that your mouth ulcers show up during the most exhausting periods of your life, that's not a coincidence. And if this video made you nod because you saw yourself in it, leave a comment. Share when you usually get mouth ulcers. Your story might help many others understand their own bodies a little better. There is one detail that very few people notice, yet it largely determines why some people's mouth ulcers take a long time to heal, while others recover in just a few days. That detail is the recovery speed of the oral lining. And this speed depends directly on your daily rhythm, not on the tube of ointment you use. The oral mucosa is one of the fastest regenerating tissues in the body. It is designed to heal quickly, but when the body is sleep deprived, dehydrated, or kept under prolonged stress, this repair process slows down. You don't feel it immediately, but that small ulcer gets stuck in an inflamed state longer than it should, making the pain linger. Another factor that is often misunderstood is hot and cold food. It's not that hot food causes mouth ulcers, but rather that repeated temperature changes and stimulation prevent the injured area from staying calm long enough to recover. You eat, the ulcer gets irritated. You drink, it's irritated again. Each time, the healing process is lightly reset. Not strong enough to be obvious, but enough to prolong the discomfort. There are also people who are very careful, they eat well, sleep enough, and still get recurring mouth ulcers. In these cases, the issue usually lies in immune sensitivity. Their immune system reacts more strongly than necessary to very minor injuries. It's like an alarm system that's too sensitive, not dangerous, but persistently annoying. What matters is this. The body doesn't create mouth ulcers to make you suffer. It is trying to protect you. The ulcer is the body's way of isolating damaged tissue, limiting bacterial entry, and activating repair. The pain isn't a flaw. It's a signal forcing you to pay closer attention to your lifestyle. So the next time you get a mouth ulcer, instead of only asking, "What should I apply to make it heal faster?" try asking a different question. Have I been sleeping enough lately? Drinking enough water? Living under prolonged stress? Many people realize that when they adjust small things, going to bed a bit earlier, eating more gently for a few days, reducing oral irritation, their mouth ulcers not only heal faster, but return less often. If you pay close attention, mouth ulcers rarely come alone. They tend to show up exactly when your body needs you to listen more carefully than usual. And when you start listening, the body often knows how to repair itself better than you expect. There is something very interesting that only people who pay close attention tend to notice. Mouth ulcers often appear exactly when you are trying to endure too much. Not when you are eating the worst, but when you are forcing yourself to be okay, to push through, to keep going, even though your body is already exhausted. The mouth speaks first, because it is one of the areas most sensitive to neurological stress. When you are stressed, the sympathetic nervous system stays switched on. Blood is prioritized for muscles and the brain to cope, while repair zones like the skin and oral lining are pushed to the background. A tiny scratch that should have healed quietly suddenly turns into an uncomfortable inflammatory spot. This is why so many people get mouth ulcers during deadlines, sleep deprivation, or periods of overthinking, not because they ate hot foods. A very real-life insight is this. Mouth ulcers often appear in people who are good at control but bad at rest. Those who tend to brace themselves, endure silently, complain little, and rarely pause are often the most affected. Their bodies don't release pressure through emotions, so they release it through biology. If you've noticed, there are mouth ulcers that don't hurt that much, yet feel persistently irritating. That's not because the ulcer is big, but because the nervous system is overly sensitive. When stress drops, that same ulcer suddenly hurts much less, very quickly. This shows that pain doesn't live only in the wound itself, but in the state of the whole body. And here is the key point for reconnecting with yourself. A mouth ulcer doesn't ask you to treat it urgently. It asks you to slow down. Slow down how you eat. Slow down your daily pace. Slow down how you treat your body for a few days. If you're watching this far, try to think back. The last time you had a mouth ulcer, what were you stressed about? Lack of sleep, work pressure, or constant overthinking? Leave a comment below and share your experience. No long explanation needed. Just one line. I usually get mouth ulcers when. Your story might help someone else realize that the problem isn't in the mouth, but in the pace of life they are being forced to endure every day. So when you already have a mouth ulcer, what is the right way to handle it so it heals faster without making things worse? The answer isn't a quick fix, but how you create the right conditions for the body to repair itself. The first and most important thing is reducing local irritation, not extreme food restriction, but avoiding repeated triggers that keep waking up the ulcer. Spicy foods, sharp, sour flavors, very salty foods, and very hot temperatures. Each time you eat these, the ulcer doesn't grow much bigger, but the healing time gets extended. This is the most common mistake: eating for pleasure, then wondering why it hasn't healed after a whole week. Next is keeping the mouth clean but gentle. Light rinsing with diluted salt water or an alcohol-free solution helps limit opportunistic bacteria without drying the mucosa. Avoid strong, burning mouthwashes during this phase because they can further irritate healthy tissue. About topical medications, it's important to understand their role correctly. They don't cure mouth ulcers. They simply reduce pain so the body has time to heal. Use them sparingly. Don't overdo it. And don't expect the ulcer to disappear overnight. One factor that is often overlooked but extremely effective is sleeping enough and drinking enough water. It sounds simple, but this is when repair hormones work most actively. Just sleeping a bit deeper for a few nights in a row can make many mouth ulcers shrink faster than you expect. If you get mouth ulcers over and over again, then it's time to think further ahead. Consider vitamin B, iron, and zinc intake from food or with medical guidance. Not to fight heat, but to strengthen the mucosal foundation, making it less vulnerable next time. And the last point, also the most personal one I want to share, every time I get a mouth ulcer now, I no longer see it as a random annoyance. I see it as a very small message from my body, reminding me that I'm moving faster than I can sustain. When I slow down, eat more gently, sleep better, and stop forcing myself to be fine, not only does the ulcer heal faster, future ones also come back less often. If you're watching this video while your mouth still stings, feel reassured. Your body knows how to repair itself. You just need to not get in its way. Thank you for staying until the very end. If this content made you recognize yourself, share this video with someone who often gets mouth ulcers like you. And don't forget to leave a comment not to ask which medicine to use, but to tell your own story.